These videos are made for the purpose of entertainment. These are not made to give you an excuse to harass the original creator. I do not condone the harassment or bullying of the creators featured in these videos.
I'm back! Hello everybody, my name is Yuji, and welcome back to another video starring me, Yuji. I'm back! I've decided to bring Yuji back as a soda on the channel to do what I used to do on CC, and I wanted to use the character again instead of just leaving her to rot away, basically. And to celebrate the return of this particular Sona, I figured I would remaster some of the older CC videos. And what better way to start this off than to remaster the video of the woman who is responsible for Titus and I starting the channel in the first place. VampirePrincess. For those of you who don't know, VampirePrincess was a user on Quotive who my sibling, Titus, and I discovered sometime in 2016. I was the first one to find her through her fanfiction, The Emperor's Bride, which was a Emperor's New Groove fanfiction where her OC, Saras Shadow, gets sucked into the movie and ends up in the lineup of brides and gets chosen to be Kuzco's wife. And from there, it's just nonsense. There was only, I want to say, 3 chapters, all of them very short with zero substance. I have the first chapter of that story, and one other fic she wrote, Kung Fu Panda Meets a Human, but all other chapters in fanfics have been lost to time, along with most of her OCs, because she deleted her Quotive, and as far as I'm aware, she hasn't made a return anywhere on the internet. I have a few of these things saved. Again, the 2 chapters of the fanfictions, a couple of her OCs from my old video, and one other OC which was reviewed on Tumblr by moderator a rat blog. A rat? I'm not saying that right, and I'm so sorry. Which is the longest bio VP has ever written. But I'm going to be going over all of these characters and the fics again. I'll get through most of these pretty fast because really the only things written about them is their names and there's a picture. If the fanfics were still up, I'd have more to work with, but unfortunately that isn't the case. Also, the thing about all of these characters is they're all the same. Because they're all self-insert characters, they all have the same looks, or super close to the same. Sometimes the hair and outfit changes. They have the same personalities. They're all, I think the only real way I can describe them is Mary Sue. They've all got the same generic, oh, she's super nice and protective of her friends, and she's also super badass, with no real flaws other than clumsy and cries easily. They're all your pretty stereotypical Mary Sue characters. I don't use that term a whole lot anymore, but it's honestly the only way I can describe these characters. This is Sarah, VP's Ed Netty OC. As is the theme with most of these characters, only a name is given alongside a picture. Though I do remember one other thing about this character because it was also the theme with all her characters. They're all half vampire, which in Ed and Eddie's usual setting, completely out of place. Now, I am not against supernatural or superpower elements being thrown into a setting where they usually don't belong. There's an old Ed and Netty comic I've read called Night of the Were-Ed by Nintendo Nut 1 on DeviantArt, where Ed gets bit by a werewolf, and then he turns Double D into a werewolf. The Canker sisters are vampires, and overall, it's a really fun supernatural Ed and Netty story. But the difference between that and Sarah is tact and storytelling. Night of the Were-Ed was a fun, interesting story about these totally normal boys being thrown into a supernatural world and having to deal with it, while Sarah is just part vampire, just because. And overall, her being a vampire has no impact on the world itself, even though it realistically would. Sarah is just a boring-ass character. The only interesting thing about her is she's a vampire, but that's just treated as if it's completely normal for the setting, and really brings no value or interest to the character or her story. And that's, again, the theme with all these OCs. Their differences from everyone else in the world are treated as if they're totally normal, and the story and these characters would be no different if they were just normal humans. This is VP's Avatar The Last Airbender OC, and as implied by the image of her, she can bend all 4 elements, but she's not the Avatar. Oh, and I'll give you 3 guesses as to who her love interest is. 1, 2, 3, it's Zuko. Who else would it be? Now back to addressing the bend all 4 elements thing. As the years have gone on, I've become less and less opposed to the idea of someone else in the Avatar universe that can bend all 4 elements. There's a lot of really cool and interesting stories and characters you could make with that concept alone. The issue with Sarah is, once again, she's not interesting. Even with her being able to bend all 4 elements and not be the Avatar, she is such a boring, generic-ass character. Which baffles me. How do you manage to make a character boring in this particular setting while they're also a multi-bender? And I'm pretty sure she's also half vampire. Like, confusing. A good tip for writing things outside of canon is try to come up for a reason why. So for a character that can bend all the elements, you could explain that she was granted this ability by the Lion Turtles. For those of you who haven't watched Korra, we learned that the first Avatar, Wan, was gifted the ability to bend all the elements from the Lion Turtles. Rava, the Spirit of Light, also had a hand in giving Wan the other elements by passing through his body after he met with the Lion Turtles. But I imagine that concept was still work via another spirit, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyways, the ability to enter the Avatar state and have that connection to the spirit world is what makes the Avatar, more or less. So if a character were to learn the elements the way Wan first did, but not have the Avatar state and that same connection to the spirit realm, it could work as an explanation as to why a character could bend all the elements in the first place, but not be the Avatar. Also, I'm taking this idea and making a character with it. It's mine now. The quality of this image sucks, but this is her Steven Universe OC. Now, the biggest thing that confuses me about this character is, as far as my memory serves, she's not a human gem hybrid like Steven is. She's just a gem, and we never got any information on whether or not she just chose to go by a human name or if her gemstone is called Sarah. If her gemstone is called Sarah, then that's ridiculous. I'm not against making up gemstones for your Steven Universe OC or for your story in general. It's fiction, it's whatever. But to just pick the name Sarah makes me feel a type of way. Mostly irritation. You could have just picked 2 gemstones that sound like they have Sarah in the name and wrote that she goes by Sarah for short. The only 2 options I found are Serendite and Seraphinite. I don't know if I'm saying those right. Considering Sarah's general color palette, Serendite would work best. Or if you want to make up a gemstone for your OC, a good tip is most mineral names end with ITE. The suffix ITE is derived from the Greek word itis. I don't know if I'm saying that right either. The adjectival form of lithos, ilthos, I don't know. I'm not saying any of these words right, but y'all are gonna have to deal with it. Which means rock or stone. So something like Sarahite would have been a pretty good made-up gemstone name for the character. Still a bit ridiculous, but it's better than just Sarah. Now on to VP's Invader Zim OC, which actually has a properly written out bio! Yay! Round of applause. It's still very short, but at least it's better than there just being a name and a picture. This is how Sarah looks. She's one of the few Urkins with a human name. She is also one of the few Urkins who doesn't wear gloves and wears a slightly more revealing outfit than other female Urkins. The one with the red hair. Quick pause. Are you colorblind? That's not meant to be an insult. I'm genuinely asking, are you actually colorblind? 'Cause that's not red, that's blonde. Or did you mean to write red outfit 'cause her outfit is red? Her hair is not, however, is her human disguise. She is smarter than Zim, but doesn't like drastically changing disguises, so her disguise won't fool Dib like Zim's doesn't fool him. Okay, I have a few problems. Firstly, how does she have a human name if Urkins didn't even know Earth and humans existed until the tallest randomly sent Zim there to get rid of him? If you wanted her name to be similar to your other OCs, a better option would be to have the name spelled differently and pronounced a little bit different than Sarah, like replace the S with a Z, so her name would be Zara. Sounds more Urk, but you can still tell it's supposed to be similar to the name Sarah. Also, why doesn't she wear the standard Urkin uniform? She has a human disguise, so she was sent to Earth with Zim. Did she get to Earth, decided she liked their clothes more and started wearing human clothes just because? Or has she been wearing these clothes before she was sent to Earth? Because that don't make sense. Also, the reason Zim's disguise is the way it is because he's incompetent and basically broken. Urkins get all their ideals and shit from the packs. It's programmed into them the second they're out of the cloning pods. Zim is the way he is because his pack has 40 schmillion errors. A direct quote from the wiki. He's, as far as we know, the only Urkin like that. Would I be opposed to another Urkin with errors in their pack that affects the way they think and feel? No! But that's not what you've done. You just wrote her, so she's different because she has to be the super special main character that's not like everyone else. Hashtag not like other girls. Age 17 in Earth years and Urkin years. If she was just 17 years old in Urkin years, I don't even think she would be out of the cloning pods at that age. She would be a fetus at that point. Jonah Vasquez said in an interview that Zim has no canonically definitive age, but he is older than any living human being, perhaps older than any beings who ever lived on Earth. However, in Urkin years, Zim is quite young, although he's not a child or adolescent. This should tell you a lot about how Urkins age. She should be thousands of years old at this point in her life if she's old enough to have a pack and serve the Empire. Also, she's 17 in human years and Urkin years. Just write 17 at that point if you've written it to where both species age the same. Jeez. Personality, nice, protective of friends and innocent creatures, is the impish kind of evil, is a badass fighter, and good at anything involving art. Screams into the void. Likes, friends, art, video games, when she finds out about them, nature, Zim's lab, and Dib's room. Screams louder. Dislikes, lying when she doesn't see it as necessary, bullies Dib and Zim fighting, earth meat, and earth water. Crush in this story. Dib. Cease. I'll start making the story when my writer's block goes away. Hope you like my Urkin. It took a long time to get the hair and antenna done. Oh boy, that was a lot. I do have a couple of other of her OCs saved. Her Gravity Falls OC is just a half vampire girl, which actually fits the universe, but as far as I remember, this character was shipped with Bill, and she was kind of a dick to Dipper, which didn't make sense, still doesn't, but again, just another boring character. Her total drama character, another half vampire shipped with Duncan, and is also very boring. And finally, her Pokemon OC, pretty sure also have vampire, and she doesn't really look like a Pokemon trainer. What is Mew doing here? I know in the games you could catch legendaries and mythical creatures, but I still have questions. One last thing about these characters is they all look the same, as stated earlier in the video. It's just the same person drawn in different styles, basically. I use the term drawn lightly. VP used mostly doll makers. Which I get they're all supposed to be self-insert characters, but just using the same design over and over again is so boring. They're barely spiced up between designs. The only ones that are super different from the others are the Steven Universe OC and the Pokemon ones, and even then I just feel like each character could have been given a lot more personality and different traits to help them all be interesting individual characters instead of the same copy-paste character every bloody time. But that's just me personally. Now that we've gone over her OCs, it's time to read the first chapter of her fanfics. The Emperor's Bride and Kung Fu Panda meets a human. Are you excited? 'Cause I'm not. The Emperor's Bride, Chapter 1, Saras POV. I sighed as my blue eyes looked over my reflection in the mirror. I combed my short, messy red hair with my hand, pale lips frowning slightly, nose twitching in slight disapproval. I scratched at a patch of skin on my left arm as I turned towards the bathroom door, causing my jeans to rustle a bit, my black Batman shirt swaying with my movements. Oh, this is so overdramatic, and I love it and hate it all at the same time. My silver half-star necklace dangled from my neck as I slipped on a pair of flip-flops and headed out of the house and made my long trek to school. Let Time Skip brought to you by Natsu's Bad Eating Habits. Fairy tale reference. I really wish VP had taken some time to write out Sarah's usual everyday life. It would be a good chance for us, the readers, to get to know the character's personality and her friends, if she has any. Does she enjoy her everyday life, or is she tired of it and wishing for something new? I feel like mentioning she's going to school is pointless because it leads nowhere. This story would still be the same if it was a weekend for her and she didn't have school, and this all started out with her waking up, getting dressed, and wondering what she's going to be doing all day. When I got home, I practically threw myself on my couch in the living room, exhausted from today's events. After a moment of lying there, I got up and headed towards my fridge where I kept my blood bags. I was far too tired to try and hunt down a rabbit or something, so this would have to do. After sucking the bag dry, I threw it in the trash and made my way back to the living room, kneeling in front of my large collection of Disney movies. What to watch, I thought as I skimmed over the title of each movie. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Emperor's New Groove it is, I said with a semi-sarcastic smile. Pretty sure that it could have just said grin or something along those lines, but okay. I inject the movie into my VHS player. Oh, VHS player. I haven't seen those since the Great War. I'm being melodramatic. I plopped down on the couch and watched as the trailer started to play. I was at the part with the brides, Kuzco rejecting them one after another, spewing out some rude comment as he passed each woman. He was almost at the last one when the picture distorted into static. I looked at the screen, confused. What just happened? I was about to get up when the middle of the screen started to swirl and illuminated a golden glow. What? I gasped, shocked as I got up and walked over to it. As I put my hand through it to see if I was imagining things, I got sucked in. I looked around with wide eyes. I was in a very familiar cartoon palace. Before my eyes could register what I was seeing, I heard two thes, very emperor I had just been watching critiquing his various brides. Too tall, hate your hair, and let me guess, you have a great personality, Kuzco said to the last three. I noticed a mirror nearby. I frowned when I saw I was animated as well, Disney style. I was still in the clothing I wore today, and still looked like me, only cartoonish. I decided to try and hover a few feet off the ground to make sure I still had my powers, and smiled when I did. Hey, you forgot to show me her, Kuzco said to the advice guy as he grabbed my wrist, causing me to fall from surprise. First of all, advisor. Second of all, no one is at all fazed by the fact that this woman, who is just floating and looks nothing like any of them. She is a white woman with red hair and blue eyes in the middle of the Inca Empire. I feel like everyone would be a little more shocked at her sudden appearance, and again, the fact that she's bloody floating in the air. I was dragged by Kuzco to stand by the other girls in line as I managed to shuffle to my feet. The advice guy was starting to stutter a bit. But sire, she is a vampire, he said. Don't care, Kuzco replied. Another thing, they wouldn't know what a vampire is. Or if they had some kind of mythos of undead blood-drinking human creatures, they would have a different word for it. The word vampire was first used, at least as far as our records show, early 18th century. The Emperor's New Groove is based on the Inca Empire, which is the 13th century, founded in 1438. That, and just by looking at her, you wouldn't be able to tell she's a vampire. She looks human. The floating thing, they might just assume she's blessed by one of their gods. But it would still be fucking shocking, and they might panic a little bit. I blushed a soft pink as the royal cute wimp. I'm sorry, I forgot she called him a wimp. Looked me up and down. She's so pale, and her skin is kind of soft, Cusco said with a smile as he held my right arm and examined it for a minute, then let go. And her eyes are so blue. How crazy is that? He grinned. I giggled a little, and Cusco smiled while the other girls gasped, expecting something bad to happen. Her hair is red, kind of like fire. Me likey, Cusco grinned. Hi, I'm Sarah. Sarah Shadow, I said with a shy smile. Gag. Nice to meet you, Sarah. I'm the Emperor Cusco, he replied with a smile and a slight bow. I smiled as Cusco turned to the rest of the group and declared me as his bride. I didn't mind, even though Cusco was kind of a jerk currently. I can't remember what happens in the movie. Oh well. Convenient. Though, honestly, I can see Cusco seeing this girl who is so different from everybody else and wanting that for himself, especially at this point in the movie. It fits his vibes. Nobody's point of view. Wow, Sarah's laugh is cute. She's going to be my empress, hands down, Cusco thought. The other girls left with sad faces and running mascara. It's not nobody's point of view. If we're reading Cusco's thoughts, it's clearly Cusco's point of view. And that's chapter 1. I do remember a little bit of what happens after this. Basically, she starts to get ready to be married with the help of some servants, and they try to take her necklace from her to dress her up in traditional wedding jewels and stuff. She freaks out, runs off, bawling her eyes out because it was the last thing she has of her mom, and she doesn't want to take it off. Bumps into Cusco, and he comforts her, completely out of character, and orders the servants to let her keep the necklace, and that's all that happened. On to the next story. Kung Fu Panda Meets a Human. Chapter 1. Sarah's point of view. I sat in front of the flat-screen TV in my living room watching Poe blind himself with the lotus clap for what seemed like the millionth time. I snorted, causing my small, roundish nose to crinkle and my bright blue eyes to water a bit. God, I loved this episode. Sighing, I ran my snow-white hand through my short, messy locks and fixed my green t-shirt, my thin black cargo pants rustling slightly as my bare feet moved back and forth on the tan carpet. I smiled softly. Poe always cheers me up without knowing it. If only I could meet them. Poe, Monkey, Crane. I wish I could know you personally. And for those of you wondering why she named those specific characters is because based on what I read from the second chapter that I remember, those are her love interests. You're welcome. I thought longingly as I looked at Poe and the Furious Five passed on my TV. Those emerald eyes so full of kindness. I was about to reach for the remote to turn off the TV when a jade glow caught my attention of my peripheral. I turned toward my TV and saw a swirling vortex. My eyes widened to the size of dinner plates and I decided to grab some of my stuff before exploring like the curious little bestie I am. I assume that was supposed to say beastie? Yes. Because my first reaction to seeing a swirling vortex open up in my house is to grab supplies so I could jump into said vortex. There's curiosity, and then there's just plain stupidity. I grabbed my black art bag and a red duffel bag, stuffing some clothes and the like into it along with some of my favorite recipes and some cookies my mom made that morning. Then, as cautiously as I could be, I headed towards the portal. It tickled a little as I walked through it. That was a mistake, because almost instantly I blacked out and I felt myself fall. These chapters are so short it annoys me, and all her stories were like this. chapters were super short. She would only post like 1 or 2 chapters for each story she had before making a new one, and it was very frustrating. These stories are very boring, and it's annoying to read. She always starts these off with a description of the character, but it's too descriptive. Reminds me of My Immortal, how the writer always went into unnecessary detail describing the character's looks. Like, I snorted, causing my small roundish nose to crinkle and my bright blue eyes to water a bit, is a weird sentence, and just wasn't needed. I snorted, causing my nose to crinkle and my eyes to water a bit, was all that was needed in that sentence. And there are better ways to write a character description than this. Maybe since most of the stories involve Sarah getting isekai'd into another universe, use the other universe's characters to describe her when they see her. This would work relatively well, especially in these 2 fics. She stands out significantly from the other characters. That way it wouldn't come off as obnoxious when we're reading a description of her appearance, since it's the other characters describing her and not herself or a narrator. Also, make the chapters longer, please. No one wants to read a story when each chapter is only a paragraph or so long, unless it's meant to be a short story, but these aren't. They have chapters that take place in the middle of a canon universe with its own story, so these fanfictions should be reasonably long. VP had a lot of potential to write really interesting stories with really interesting characters, but she just refused to put in the time or effort to actually make them good. She just put out very mediocre stories and characters, and I think that's what frustrated me the most with Vampire Princess. She had the potential to make interesting things, but she just refused to do so. All VP needed to do was make some small changes here and there for it to be a good product, or at least better than mediocre, but no. And I know that not everyone who makes content wants or cares about putting out something amazing, and they just want to throw something out there just because they can, but it just confuses me that someone wouldn't want to improve what they create at least a little bit. Maybe that's the autism, or just my feelings as someone who wants to write stories but struggles with the inability to do things. Pretty sure it's ADHD, but I'm not officially diagnosed, because good luck with getting a diagnostic in America as a woman and a person of color. But anyways, I'm rambling. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this remastered video of the original Vampire Princess videos. There will be a video redesigning and rewriting these characters, so be on the lookout for that. If there's any older CC video that you want to see me redo, you are free to suggest them. I won't be redoing all of them, obviously, but I'll pick the best ones and give them a new coat of paint, so to speak. I'm Yuji, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.